My name is Greg Marks. I'm a customer success engineer here at ShareFile. And today we're going to go through some of the basics. It's going to be a getting started webinar. So first off, I want to just say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being ShareFile customers. There's a lot of other places you could be right now, but you are here today. And I hope you get something out of today's webinar. Little agenda here. Today we're going to look at the login and two-factor authentication on your account. Going to kind of look at what a subdomain is. We'll look at the folders, your file box and inbox. We'll go through the process of sharing a file and requesting a file. We'll look at creating a folder and go through a little bit of the folder permissions on those folders. We'll go through adding a user. There's a couple ways we'll do it. We'll add a user during the folder creation process, and then we'll go through showing how to manually create those. And we'll look at some of the settings from a user setting to admin settings we'll touch on as well. And then we'll also show some of the available applications that you can use to interact with ShareFile.
All right. We're going to start by taking a look at our ShareFile login page. We're going to look at two-factor authentication. And we're also going to look at our subdomain. So to access my ShareFile account, we're going to start off by going to my custom subdomain that I've set up for my personal account, and that is gregh.sharefile.com. And it looks like it already logged me in, so I'm going to go ahead and log out. Now my login page is going to look a little bit different than yours may look. To start off, I've put a custom branding on the header here, as well as some images, background. So I also have single sign-on set up on my account. So as you see on the left-hand side, this sign-in is going to be using single sign-on, and the right-hand side is going to be for my normal ShareFile employee and client login. By default, all of my employee users are required to use two-factor authentication. Now, the first time you enroll in this, it's going to require a phone number to send a SMS text message with a code or voice call to provide a code to verify your identity. Once that is set up, you can set up an authenticator app within your personal settings if it makes it easier for you to use that instead of a mobile code or voice call. So my subdomain, I went to gregh.sharefile.com. You're able to set up 2 additional subdomains if you'd like to distinguish one URL for external clients maybe, and one for internal employees. It's really up to you how you'd like to set that up. But there is going to be a primary subdomain and then 2 alternate subdomains to access your ShareFile tenant. So I'll go ahead and log in with my admin account. I'll get my text message authentication code. And one thing to take note of is the option for I trust this computer. This will show up in your trusted devices that we'll take a look at a little bit later. Basically, if you don't want to use a verification code over and over when you're just accessing from a trusted computer, you can check this box when you log in. So we'll verify here. And now we are logged into our Greg H. ShareFile tenant. So when you first log in, or anytime that you log into your account, you're going to see the main dashboard. This is customizable. You have 4 different panes here. We'll start with the top right. You have quick shortcuts to some of the features you have available on your account, including just a simple share files button, request files, and send for signature, among a few others. Top left is going to be recent files that you have accessed, just to quickly get into those files and keep editing them. Bottom left is your favorites. You are able to set favorites on a folder or a particular file for easy access later. Right now, I don't have anything favorited, but if I were to go, let's say, into my personal folders, the star icon here, if I check workflows here and I go back to the dashboard, you'll see that my favorites has updated with workflows. Bottom right here is tutorials. This is great for if you are new to ShareFile. We offer very basic or even advanced videos just to get you familiar with some of the features. We try to highlight a lot of this content during our Getting Started webinars, but it's just nice to have that there for your employees to view and gain a little bit more knowledge about the ShareFile web application, as well as some of the desktop applications like the Outlook plugin. And if you're familiar with this interface and let's say you don't want to see one of these or you want to rearrange them, you can simply drag and drop these fields. You can also click Edit Dashboard on the right here if you wanted to disable these from showing up when you log in. So now we have a little bit cleaner interface. So before we actually go into sharing a file, requesting a file, we'll go through what the different folders are here. We'll look at file box and your inbox. So folders on the left-hand navigation menu is going to list your personal folders. These are really meant to be just personal, like a home directory, a place to store things while you're working on them, somewhere where you don't necessarily want to create share links or things that you would want to share out within your organization or outside. Shared folders here, this is going to be where the main portion of your company's directory or file organization is going to be. The top level folders here are going to be kind of what you work out of. It's best to keep this as short as possible. You want to work down within the folder structure rather than out. You don't want to clutter up this main root folder or root directory with a bunch of folders. And creating a folder in here is as simple as going up to the plus button and create a folder. This is actually going to be a permission that is by default on, but you can limit this to only certain people within the organization to create top level or root level folders. So I will create a folder here. We'll name this webinar testing. We can add people to this folder while we're creating it. So what we'll actually do is we'll create a external user and we'll add them to it. Apply template. This is going to be templates are for automatically structuring a folder with a linked template. The account has templates that can be created and used on multiple folders, and any changes to that original template will be reflected on anything linked to it. For today's webinar, we're not going to apply any folder templates, but a little bit later on, I'll show you in the settings where you can create those. Default storage zone, if you're in the cloud, it's going to default to your storage zone that was set up, depending on where you are located. So since we're adding people, we'll go ahead and create folder. And here you can select users that are already in the system, such as employees that have already been created via your Active Directory or just manually created in the system. For today's demo, we're actually going to create an external user. Folder permissions over here. View is only going to be view only. Download will allow the user to download files to their local machine. Upload will give the ability to actually upload files into a folder or create folders. Delete is self-explanatory. This allows files to be deleted by that user. And admin is going to be a little bit elevated permissions. This will allow the user to make changes to the folder, maybe retention policy, changing the template, things surrounding the administration of a folder. So for today, we're just going to give view and download. You can set up folder alerts, so you can email users when files are uploaded. This is personal preference depending on how you want external users to be notified. You can notify added users. You can also edit the message. And you can apply settings to subfolders. So if any folder is created underneath this folder, so let's say we are creating a folder for an external user to upload some documents to us, and then we're going to add some folders underneath that. This will give those same permissions to any folders underneath that client folder that we've set up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And before we can add this folder, we're going to say add to the user, and we'll kind of go through setting up that account from a new user's perspective. So we'll say add here, and now we have that webinar folder. We have no items in it, but if we go to the People tab here, we can see that we set up Greg Webinar. That's going to be an external client. They have only view and download. And we also have super users. The super users on the account are those which have access to all files and folders on an account. This super user account can be hidden from the people menu if you don't want your employees or users to know that there are super users who have access to the folder. All right, so we've created a user, we've created a folder, and we've set up some permissions on that folder. Navigating back to the main navigation pane here, we looked at our personal folders, our shared folders, and we created a folder within that. We're going to kind of continue on down this menu here. Favorites, similar to our dashboard view where we had our favorites. These are going to be any items. This can be files or folders that you work out of a lot and you just want to favorite them. They'll only show up here under favorites. File box here, you can think of this as the little basket on top of your filing cabinet. It's a temporary holding place, maybe a place where external people come into the office and drop some things off. Those would be considered like a file request. You know, this is a temporary holding place. There is a retention by default of 180 days. So any files that you receive from a request that don't have a specific location that they're going will come here. If you're using file drops, like a public link to a file drop that you embed in a website or something like that, this will be the default place for those files to live until they get moved or deleted at a later time. And then recycle bin. This is just where files go once they're deleted. The recycle bin has by default a 45-day retention period. You can also come in here and restore files that will send them back to the original location, or you can delete them permanently, which will be permanent. All right. So switching gears, we're going to take a look at that external client that we set up. I've switched over to the email account for that external user, and it looks like we do have a share link for webinar folder, and we have a link here to go ahead and activate our account and view this folder. So we're going to go ahead and click this. And now we are brought to a login page with our company branding. We'll say continue. We'll create a password here. And it looks like the account was created. It brought us back to the Greg H ShareFile login page. And if you notice, it did not ask us for multi-factor or two-factor authentication setup. This is actually an option on this account. I don't have the two-factor authentication required for client or external users. A little bit later when I go through some of the admin settings, I'll show you where that can be turned on for client users to use two-factor authentication as well. But we'll go ahead and log in here with our account we just set up. And as you can see, the client view as an external user is a little bit limited versus our administrator login. You can see we have a dashboard, but then under folders, we only have shared folders. What was shared with us is the webinar folder only that we created. The inbox is going to be limited as well, since we're not able to really send out anything for send out any requests for files, things like that, or encrypted emails. So all we're going to have is received, archived, and then personal settings is going to be very basic as well, and we'll go into that a little bit later. So we have our client account set up. Let's go back into our admin area. And we're actually going to create another folder here, and we're going to share a file and request a file from that new client. So we'll create a folder here, webinar file testing. At the moment, we're not going to add people to it. We're not going to use a template. We'll say create folder. So now we are in a webinar testing folder. Really, the only people that are on that is myself and the super users. Myself, I am on there since I created it. I'm automatically set to the owner. And we're going to upload a file. I'm going to drag and drop a file from my local machine here. It's a Word document. And there are a couple ways we can share this out. So we can select the file here and click share. If you remember earlier, we do have the shortcuts. So we can share the file directly here. We could drag and drop that same file, or we can choose from ShareFile. So if you go into shared folders here, we should see that webinar file testing and that file that we uploaded. We'll say add. We'll say continue. So here we can create a link. First, we're going to take a look at the options. So allowing people with this link, do you want them to be able to download or view? Who can access this link? You can say client and employee users, which will require a sign-in, or employee users only, so no external users. So I'm going to say client and employee users, sign-in is required. We'll just say, we'll give this a week, access expires. I'll always link to the latest version of the file. If you do have file versioning on, this will essentially link to the most recent file. Adding a watermark, if you have this on your account, this will just add an overlaid watermark on the document, just in case it gets lost or something. There will be some documentation on where this file came from or who it belongs to. So today we'll turn off watermark and we'll turn off the notification when the link is accessed. All right, so here we have a link. This is a unique link to that file. We can create another link. We can replace the link, we can delete the link, or we can send to specific people. So we're actually going to send it to that webinar client that we set up earlier. All right, we'll go ahead and send that off. And one thing to note here is that since we did send a share link out, if we go to inbox and we go to sent, you can actually see that we sent we sent a file to Greg Webinar at 7:56. It has the 7 days left that we set expiration. So this will be a log of all the things that you send out. You can see we have some anonymous ones down here. We have some encrypted emails. So this will be a good place to go to get a log of what's going on in your account. You can expire the link if you're done with it. Let's say that the external user got what they needed. We're all ready to go. You don't need that share link anymore. You can simply expire the link here, and that will just get rid of the link altogether. It will not be usable. So we'll go over to our other account here. And it looks like we do have a couple emails. We did get a ShareFile confirmation email that we set up our account for Greg H. ShareFile. We also have a email for a file link. So there's the note that we wrote. We can simply click open. It will navigate us directly in. And since we're already authenticated in as that external client, here's the file that we were linked to. And it looks like we have the download option as well that we were given. Go back to our admin. Now requesting files is very similar. You have the option to request a file directly from your shortcuts menu here. If we go into shared folders here, and we go into our file testing, we can go to the plus, we can request files here. So there are a number of ways that you can accomplish this. So we'll go here to request files. File location, by default, is going to be the file box, but since we're already in a folder and we're requesting a file from this folder, it's going to put that folder here. This will be the destination of the file request. You can get a link if you want to quickly just generate a link and send an email to someone, or you can send to specific people. Up here in edit, you can change where the file location is. If you're mistakenly chose this folder and you're like, actually I do want to do the file box, you can simply change it there. We'll cancel that and keep it in webinar file testing. We'll send it to specific people here. Send it to the same external user we're working with. And edit options here, we do have expiration options. We can require recipients to sign in, and we have some notifications notifications available here when files are uploaded, and if you want to send a copy of this email to yourself. So we'll turn off notifications. We'll just require recipients to log in. We'll expire it after a week, and we'll save, and then we'll request. So we'll go over to our other account here, and you can see we have a couple of new emails, and it looks like we received a file request link. So we'll go in here. Please upload the document we talked about. You can click directly into upload. And now we are in the file request for the Greg H account that we sent out earlier. So I will take a file here that was requested of me, and I'll drag and drop it in here. We'll say upload. And pretty much now that it's uploaded, we're done. So we'll switch back over to our admin view here. And if we refresh this page, you'll see now there is the access report that I uploaded as the external webinar client. So one thing I'll mention here is the activity log. If you come up to more options on the folder, activity log is going to allow you to sort and print out all of the actions that took place within this folder, including download, upload, who's deleting things, editing, and you can see here the activity log for everything selected here. We can see that the webinar client viewed the file at 7:58, and uploaded this file at 8:02. So this is a great way to just kind of go through and audit the changes that have been made in that folder you've shared out. All right. So earlier we created a client user while we were setting up a folder. That is one way to create a user. But let's take a look at the People tab here, and we'll create an employee user from the Browse Employees menu. So you have employee users, those are licensed users, and you have clients which are unlicensed but have limited capabilities. It's really only for those external clients. If we go to Browse Employees, we can create an employee manually right from the web interface here. We'll give a name. Put an email address, which is required. Company is not required. We'll just leave that blank for now. Now, this is one way to add an employee user. You can do a bulk import. We do have a link here for importing multiple users. There is a template, which essentially is first name, last name, email address, and company. And if you fill that out with multiple users, you will generate those users all at once without manually doing them one by one. We also have some other integrations. If you're in an Active Directory environment, we do have a user management tool that will provision users based on Active Directory groups. So that is another option as well for creating users. Now, by default, the user access level is going to be very limited. Although, like we mentioned earlier, create root level folders in shared folders is a default permission. So if you are just running through quickly generating user accounts, just keep that in mind. User access is going to allow you to give employees access to more administrative permissions, such as managing the people, managing company account information, like the branding and reporting, viewing a notification history, things like that. Billing information is very specific to billing. Connectors and storage zones, those are for external connectors into your ShareFile account if you do have an on-premise storage zone, or you have some external connectors to, let's say, OneDrive or to Box or something like that. In advanced preferences, you do have the ability to give someone access to manage folder templates. If you just wanted them to be able to manage the templates and nothing else, that ability is there to just select what they need. Storage location by default when you're in the cloud is going to be the closest ShareFile data center. And user access to folders, you can assign folders directly to a user. You can also add them to a distribution group, which distribution groups can be added to folders as permissions. So you can have multiple users be added to a folder without having to manually to add them. So for instance, if you had like a human resources group and had a bunch of users in that, you would just give the human resources distribution group access to certain folders, and then you just put that user into the human resources distro. You can also copy folder access from an existing user if, let's say, someone is coming on to replace an employee. That option is available to you as well. So I will keep the default permissions here, and I'll just go ahead and create and continue. It's going to warn you if there aren't any folders assigned. You can assign the folders here, or you can continue. The message that gets sent out to this person in their email can be edited here. You can also send a copy of this email to yourself, and I will go ahead and notify this person. So last thing we'll take a look at along the left navigation pane here is the settings. So when you do have administrative permissions, whether you have all of the admin permissions or you have one, you will see admin settings here. If you have no administrative privileges, you will only see personal settings. Personal settings is just how it sounds. It's going to be where you modify your profile. Your name, company, you can change your password, add email, alternate email addresses, that can be modified here. Personal security is very important. This is where you can update your two-step verification, and you can change your security questions. So let me first put up a little privacy while I go into two-step verification here. And this will show your primary phone number. This will allow you to add a backup phone number, add a authenticator app if that's the way you'd like to authenticate. Any of the most common ones, Microsoft, Google Authenticator, they all work for one-time passwords. Security codes here, as well as application-specific passwords. This is important if you do have two-factor authentication on your account. Some of the connectors like storage zone controllers, or if you're using UMT or setting up an FTP connection, those are not going to play nicely with two-factor. So application-specific passwords will allow you to create passwords specific to those connections. Advanced connections here. This is going to be where if you have it enabled on your account, you can set up a FTP or WebDAV connection. My apps and devices. This is going to show a list of all the devices that you've authenticated into ShareFile with. I mentioned earlier that when you log in and you check the box for trusting this computer, this is where they'll show up. If you feel as though your account has been compromised or some other device has been compromised that you use with ShareFile, it would be a good idea to come in here and revoke your computers. You can do that with just a click of that button. You can also revoke individual or lock individual devices from being able to authenticate into ShareFile. Next, we'll briefly go into some of the admin settings here. We do touch on some of these options in more advanced webinar series, but for today's webinar, we're just going to briefly look at some of the important ones. So the admin overview will give you some information about your billing plan type, which is important, and how many licenses you're using. It'll also give you your ID. This is important for when you're reaching out to support. And also we have the account owner. And this is also important to have, to know who is your account owner. Company account info is important as well. This is where you can edit your company branding if you have the permissions to do that. You can change the title, the logo, the colors to meet your company standards, and you do have some advanced options to also modify your email, your header, your footer, and your logo that appears in your email notifications that go out from the ShareFile system. And here's that login page as well that I customized. There are a lot of options here to really make it look like it's your company website. Reporting is also important. If you do have access, you can set up one-time reports, anything from usage, getting the activity on a folder, to storage detail to review all the files stored in your account, getting a breakdown of the share links, who and what is being shared, user report showing all the users, bandwidth, and any outgoing messages are able to be reported on. So this is a great tool for admins to come in and schedule these on a monthly or bi-monthly cadence. These can be saved directly into a shared folder for you to view at a later time. So moving on, we'll look at the security. We mentioned this earlier when I created my client account. it did not require me to set up two-factor authentication. That is the option here for two-step verification. Right now on this account, we only have employee users required for two-step verification. You can come in here and enable client users, and just be mindful of this. If you do turn it on, the next time a client or external user logs in, they will be prompted to set up a two-factor authentication method. There are some other account-specific configurations down here. One thing to keep in mind is that we do work with SAML 2.0 configurations. So if you want to use single sign-on, like I have on this account, I have a Okta identity provider. You can configure that on your account here. Edit super user group. We briefly talked about this. The super users are those users on an account that don't necessarily have the ability to change account settings, but super users are those who have access to all files and folders on an account. So keep that in mind when you do add people to this group. It is account wide. So any personal folders, any shared folder, anything they have access to. And we also have the ability, like I mentioned earlier, to hide the super user group from the folder access list or the people tab, just to let people know that they're the only ones on a folder, although they aren't. And coming down to advanced preferences, we'll take a look at email settings. Email settings, if you do want to configure your own SMTP server for sending out mail, the option is here if you'd like those notifications to come from your own email domain. Email notifications, this is a blanket for the account. You can set a email notification cadence. Right now, every 15 minutes is mine. You can change that to once a day, every hour, twice a day, or real time, depending on how you'd like those notifications to go out. Another option we'll take a look at is enable ShareFile tools. This is where you can show the apps page in the navigation bar. So up here at the top right, this will give users links to download the desktop tools. If you'd like to disable the Outlook plugin completely, that option is here. We also have some external tools like the FTP access and WebDAV access that can be disabled here. Like I mentioned earlier, folder templates are templates that can be applied to folders to apply a folder hierarchy instead of creating all the folders manually every time. Creating a new template can be done easily, and any changes that are made will be applied to any of the folders that are linked to these templates. And the last thing we'll take a look at here are file drops. These are public links that can be embedded in websites or sent out that are used as a general file drop location. They can be targeted to individual users' file boxes, or they can be targeted to specific folders. But this is a great place to embed a link on your website if you're taking in forms or something like that. There are a lot of different use cases you can use file drops for, but those configurations can be created right here.
So the last thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't quite cover in that recording was the actual applications that you have access to. So we talked about being able to turn off the apps button up at the top right. So any user that logs in, if they need to download one of our desktop applications, this button up here is going to be where they access those. So we do have some applications for Windows and Mac. The ShareFile for Windows application, you see the first option here. This is great for if you want to connect into ShareFile through your native Windows Explorer or the Mac Finder on the Mac side. So you have a lot of the same functionality. You can share files, you can request files. If you wanted to download an offline copy, let's say if you're going on a plane or something, you want to still manage that file, you can do that all through the native Explorer interface. And the ShareFile for Outlook plugin, that's great if you're somebody who works a lot in Outlook. One of the big use cases for ShareFile is sending and receiving large files that go over the email limits. So if you're frequent in sending out emails with attachments, ShareFile for Outlook will allow you to embed a nice visual file link that shows what files are being shared, or if it's a request, it'll provide a link directly to the requested file location. We also have ShareFile for Gmail, fairly new tool. This will link you to the marketplace, the Google Marketplace, to download that integration as well.
So that's all I have for today. I really appreciate everyone's attention. And again, thank you for tuning in today. What we'll do